Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. This week's questions answered video: why do you use the slide release on the handgun versus going over the top or the slingshot method or whatever your terminology for it is? This question's a little bit like the fax machine. You kind of wonder why it's still around, but it's a very valid topic, very valid question. There was a time when I was in the camp of people who believed that when you reloaded a handgun from slide lock or clear to malfunction, slide lock, anytime the gun was basically in this condition, the slide is locked to the rear, that instead of using the release, you should perform your reload, go over the top, either full hand grab from the front, manipulation from, or full hand grab from the rear, manipulation from the front, whatever your hand technique was, as long as it wasn't blocking the ejection port breach, whatever you want to call it, in order to put the gun back in a battery and go back to work. The most common reason given for that technique is you're going to lose your fine motor skills under stress, so you shouldn't practice things that require fine motor skills. And this is a topic that's come up tertiarily or on the side in other videos that I've done. But it's important to me because I was once one of the people that believed that, because that's how I'd been taught. And I was able to learn through my own self-education and learning from other instructors and just my own personal experiences that it's not necessarily the case that you're going to lose your fine motor skills and you're going to lose the ability to hit the release. Even on a handgun like a Glock, now granted this is an agency field edition, the slide stop is still the OEM size, which is relatively small, yet I don't ever miss it. It's never been an issue for me to find that. And then if we consider what is the definition of a fine motor skill, my definition of a fine motor skill is single digit manipulation. Anytime I'm going to have to use a single finger independent from other fingers when we're talking about firearms in order to perform a task. If you think about the handgun, the magazine release is a fine motor skill. For most shooters, traditionally, your right-handed shooters, that's going to be performed with the thumb. The slide release is a fine motor skill also, but so is the trigger. So I'm already doing this fine motor skill by definition, and then the trigger could be considered a fine motor skill, another one. And then I've got this third one, but for some reason I'm not supposed to do the third one. And to me that doesn't really make any sense. Now, like I said, I used to be firmly in that camp, but I also said that I became more educated about the topic. What really clinched it for me was consistent repetitions. All my own personal high stress experiences aside, I've never seen a meaningful reason to not use the slide release, even under the fear of maybe my digital tip finger from me being the way that I release the slide is going to somehow stop working. I've never had that experience where the slide release wasn't available to me and where I wasn't able to manipulate it when I needed to manipulate it. In fact, even some popular over-the-top or racking the gun methods, I'm still more likely to use the slide release because it's the quickest solution to the issue that I'm having, which is the slide is locked to the rear and that's not how I want it. I want the gun in battery. So I'm going to use that little release because it's faster, it's more efficient. Is there anything going wrong with going over the top or the slingshot method or whatever you want to call it when you reload? No, there isn't. However, it is an inefficiency when compared to using the slide stop or the slide release. That methodology or that method is going to be much faster, more efficient than it is going to be going over the top. Is there good cause for the slingshot method versus using the slide release? I think there are some situations where it could make sense to use the over the top or the slingshot method or pulling back on the slide to release the slide than there would be using the slide release itself. A lot of extra spring tension is contained in that last few fractions of an inch of spring. So from here, I'm not maximizing all that guide rod spring to release the slide. So I am gaining a little bit more forward momentum if I pull back and then release. So if the gun is dirty or something like that, then I can see maybe that being useful. However, having said that, I've never personally experienced a situation where using the slide release wasn't enough to get the gun to go back in a battery if everything was working as it was supposed to. And if everything isn't working as it's supposed to, that extra little bit of spring tension may not provide the advantage you're wanting for, and then you're going to have to clear some kind of induced malfunction anyway. Another potential reason for going over the top or using the slingshot method or something like that is if you're wearing really heavy gloves, like assaulter gloves, glass gloves, winter gloves, something like that. If you don't feel like you have the dexterity because of the gloves in order to hit that really small OEM release on the Glock or whatever size release you have in the firearm that you choose to carry, the handgun that you choose to carry, I can see there being some benefit there. We are thinking creatures. We can perform tasks in more than one way based on the conditions that we have to perform them. And to think that there's only one way to accomplish any given task on the firearm, there are some things on the gun that there's only one way to do it, but there's many things on the gun that there's more than one way to do it, and you should be knowledgeable enough to be able to change those methods in order to perform the task based on the context, based on the situation. So I hope that answers the question. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.